Today is Jiang Suizhou and I's wedding anniversary. I'm very happy. We put work aside and spent time together. Jiang Suizhou booked a restaurant, bought flowers, and even gave me a gift. After dinner, he asked me if I wanted to go somewhere or do anything. Everything was up to me. I said, let's go home. When we went home to watch movies and talk, I liked the quiet togetherness of the two of us more than the hustle and bustle outside. I was in the kitchen cutting fruit and arranging them on a plate, while he was in the living room opening a bottle of wine. I vaguely heard him talking on the phone. Something seemed to be up. His voice was low. What's wrong? When I came out washing my hands, he had already changed into a shirt and was buttoning it. Wen Zhu had another argument with Yi Xiaonuo. I'll go see. Call Yi Xiaonuo and ask where she is. This made my hand-wiping action stop. I looked up and didn't say anything for a long time, silently looking at Jiang Suizhou. When he picked up his coat, I suddenly spoke up. Do you like Yi Xiaonuo? I wanted to ask, did he like Yi Xiaonuo? Or did he like Wen Zhu? I didn't understand. Was it Wen Zhu and Yi Xiaonuo who were in love? Or was it Wen Zhu, Yi Xiaonuo, and Jiang Suizhou who were in love? Why did Jiang Suizhou have to be present every time they argued? This was already the third time in half a month. My anger flared up, and I wanted to say something. But Jiang Suizhou's gaze made me choke. He stopped and turned to look at me. His gaze was extremely cold, making me feel like a basin of ice water had been poured on my face. He threw his coat onto the sofa. If you don't want me to go, just say it. Don't talk like that. If others hear it, things between Yi Xiaonuo and Wen Zhu will be even more difficult. After he finished speaking, he took a cigarette and went to the balcony. I froze in place. After I regained my composure, I felt hurt. He did as I asked and did not leave. But this did not make me feel better. On the contrary, it made me sadder. Wen Zhu is Jiang Suizhou's childhood friend. Yi Xiaonuo is a design assistant in my company. The two of them started dating a year and a half ago. In the first 3 months, they were inseparable. After that, although there were conflicts, they didn't have much impact, until the Wen family started to object, until Yi Xiaonuo's self-esteem was trampled. Just like that, the two of them became enemies, unable to break up or be together. Every time they argued, either Wen Zhu would turn around and leave, or Yi Xiaonuo would delete, block, and disappear. Wen Zhu couldn't put aside his dignity to make peace, but he was worried about Yi Xiaonuo, so he asked Jiang Suizhou to find Yi Xiaonuo for him. Yi Xiaonuo felt wronged and full of thoughts, and didn't want to lower her head and explain things to Wen Zhu. So she told him through Jiang Suizhou. Once, twice, 3 times. In the end, who was the one who knew the taste of the marrow? I didn't know. I only know that I often hear in my house, Wen Zhu and Yi Xiaonuo are arguing again. So much so that even when I sleep, I dream of this voice. I don't know when I fell asleep. Jiang Suizhou didn't return to his room. I thought he was sleeping in the study or in the spare bedroom. I woke up and went downstairs to get some water. The jacket that was originally on the sofa was gone. My heart skipped a beat, and I froze in place. I almost didn't need to think to know where Jiang Suizhou went. But I still called him. After a few seconds of waiting, a gentle female voice rang out, "Hello, President Zhu." I clenched my jaw and closed my eyes. When I opened my eyes, I coldly asked, "Where is Jiang Suizhou?" My stomach hurts. Brother Jiang is making ginger tea with brown sugar for me. Yi Xiaonuo's tone of voice was very slow. Her voice was also very small, with a nasal tone, but I felt like someone had hit me hard on the head. My eardrums vibrated. "President Zhu, I'm sorry to bother you two again. I know, you don't know." Yi Xiaonuo was still speaking, but I didn't have the patience to listen. I laughed coldly. "Yi Xiaonuo, without a third person involved, can't your love continue, regardless of whether it's your boss or Jiang Suizhou's wife?" "Yi Xiaonuo, you're bothering me." Actually, it was Yi Xiaonuo who bothered Jiang Suizhou at first. The first time she called Jiang Suizhou was to ask if Wen Zhu was with Jiang Suizhou. Jiang Suizhou replied, "No." Yi Xiaonuo was silent for a moment. Then, "Does brother Jiang know where he is?" "I don't know." Jiang Suizhou was stern, even a little cold. Then Wen Zhu blamed Jiang Suizhou for not supporting him. Jiang Suizhou glanced at her. "This is the first and last time. Don't bother me with such boring things in the future. These words were said but not entirely done. After that, Xiao still called Jiang Suizhou. Every time it was to ask where Wenzu was. Jiang Suizhou still picked up the phone because Wenzu begged him. Just think of it as coaxing a child and dealing with her a few sentences. She doesn't have a sense of security. There was a time when Jiang Suizhou would turn black in discomfort when he heard the phone ring. I still found it quite interesting. I comforted him. Children in love are like that. When did things start to change? Probably when the Wen family objected to the relationship between those two. That day, the noise was very unsightly. Wenzu called Jiang Suizhou and asked him to go to the Wen family to take Xiao away. I went with Jiang Suizhou. Xiao sat in the car and cried for a long time. Jiang Suizhou smoked a lot of cigarettes outside the car. Later, Jiang Suizhou's attitude towards Xiao became gentle. I found out about this through a phone call. That day, before Jiang Suizhou went home, he called me to ask if I wanted to eat anything. I said no. Then I suddenly remembered that I wanted to eat cake. So I called him back. The phone was busy. I called again 10 minutes later. And it was still busy. When he got home, the phone was still pressed to his ear. It was more than 15 minutes later that he hung up. I asked who he was. He said, Xiao argued with Wenzu, and cried all the time. I was stunned, a little surprised. Jiang Suizhou was not a patient person. But today he listened to Xiao complain for nearly an hour. Why did she tell you? Probably hoping you would sympathize. And then teach Wenzu a lesson. Because of these words, for a long time after that, I didn't pay attention to their frequent contact. And after that time, the two of them seemed to be even closer. Why did she drink your glass of wine? I've told her so many times. She's just like a child. I remembered Jiang Suizhou's expression when he said that. He shook his head and sighed. Half helpless and half amused. His brows relaxed. The corners of his mouth curled up. Like a father talking about his most pampered child. An hour and a half later, Jiang Suizhou returned home. If he had gone to Xiao's house, it would have taken him no more than 40 minutes to get here. But it took him an hour and a half. I didn't want to guess what happened from the time I hung up the phone to when he left for home. I chose to ask directly. Jiang Suizhou's tiredness could be seen with the naked eye. He sat on the sofa, hunched over, his hands propped up on his legs. He said, "You shouldn't have made that phone call." This sentence was like a fuse igniting a fuse. I exploded immediately. Jiang Suizhou, do you want to tell me whether or not you should have? You clearly agreed with me not to go, but you secretly went out. Should you have done that? A single man and a single woman in the middle of the night. Should you have done that? Brown sugar and ginger tea? How long did it take you to cook it? Should you have done that? For another person of the opposite sex. You hurt my feelings over and over again. Should you have done that? Humph. You should have done that. I think you should be single the most. My eyes were red with anger. My eyeballs felt like they were bursting. Swollen and painful. My whole body was tense and trembling. Even my voice was choked and uncontrollable. Not losing my composure to the point of crying miserably was my last dignity. I turned around and went into the bedroom, slamming the door shut. I don't know how long it took, but in the darkness, Jiang Suizhou groped his way in. He lay down next to me, sighed and hugged me. I was wrong. This is the last time. I promise I won't care about their business anymore. I silently looked forward in the darkness, neither responding nor refuting. During the time I returned to my room, after my emotional outburst, I calmed down. I reviewed the events of tonight from beginning to end. I suddenly discovered a point that made me uncomfortable from the beginning. Do you like Xiao? If you don't want me to go, just say it. Don't talk like that. If others hear, the matter between Xiao and Wenzu will be even more difficult. He did not defend himself or explain. He was not even worried that I would misunderstand. He was only worried that my words would affect Xiao. After all, it was Xiao and Wenzu's matter. It was not Wenzu and Xiao's matter. The order changed. The difference was like heaven and earth. So you suspect that Jiang Suizhou really likes Xiao? Impossible. My best friend found it unbelievable. No matter what, she is Wenzu's girlfriend. Even if he was moved, the other person shouldn't be Xiao. He only respects Wenzu. I chuckled softly. Respect Wenzu. You and him have been friends since childhood. When you have a stomachache, he will cook you brown sugar and ginger tea. My best friend widened her eyes. Brown sugar and ginger tea? He will think I am like brown sugar and ginger tea. That's right, I have never drunk it either. My best friend and I were silent. After a long while, she asked, "What are you going to do?" I rubbed my temples. I need some quiet time. I went on a business trip for a week. I didn't tell Jiang Suizhou. Before getting on the plane, I sent him a message. The atmosphere between us for the past 2 days was very bad. He intended to break the ice and took the initiative to talk to me. But Jiang Suizhou was not someone who would bow down to others. After I didn't respond to him, he also fell silent. During the few days of business trip, I thought a lot. When I separated myself from that environment, it seemed like I could see things more clearly. Actually, I had noticed the contact between Jiang Suizhou and Xiao for a long time. But I didn't say anything, just endured it. Because Xiao was Wenzu's girlfriend. Because the speculation about Jiang Suizhou and Xiao was extremely absurd. But if we ignored the relationship between us and Wenzu, the connection between Jiang Suizhou and Xiao was indeed too close. I remembered a week ago. I didn't know why, but Wenzu and Xiao had an argument. Wenzu turned around and drove away with a dark face, leaving Xiao there. After that, Wenzu called Jiang Suizhou and asked him to take Xiao home. Jiang Suizhou was silent for a long time after listening, then gave him a few words. "You bastard." He hurriedly took the car keys and went out the door, so anxious that he didn't even say goodbye to me. He didn't come back that night. He didn't come back until dawn. I asked him what took him so long. He said Xiao wasn't in a good mood and didn't want to go home. So he played billiards with her all night. She told me to go home first. But in the middle of the night, she's a single woman. Wenzu entrusted her to me. I can't just abandon her. Everything was reasonable. It was just me thinking nonsense. But from the outside looking in, it wasn't right. It was just not wrong enough to shake the heavens and earth. So I had to endure it. Why? Jiang Suizhou had a conflict with Wenzu. This was the news I received on the 4th day of my business trip. My best friend sent me a video. In the video, Jiang Suizhou covered Xiao with his coat and hugged her. Wenzu chased after her with a cold expression. "Stop. She is my girlfriend." Jiang Suizhou's expression was cold, and he turned his head to look back mockingly. "Wenzu, if you can't manage your family and protect her, then I have to take her away." It was said that Wenzu's sister brought a check and an offer from a famous foreign company to find Xiao and asked her to leave. You know how powerful our CEO Xiao is. She told Xiao directly that she cannot marry into the Wen family. Instead of wasting her best time on a man, it's better to ensure a good future for herself. The Wen family's president Xiao Wen is a stormy, decisive killer. She's a few years older than us, and has always been an example for us to follow. It's not surprising that she would say such words. Just 10 minutes ago, I received a text message from her. Just one sentence. "Manage Jiang Suizhou well, or I'll manage it for you." I tapped the table lightly. I remembered that when the Wen parents strongly objected, President Xiao Wen didn't say a word. She wasn't interested in these love affairs. Now that she's showing up, something must have happened. So I called the design department to ask about Xiao's recent work situation. She hasn't been to work for a week. Who approved her leave? She didn't ask for leave. What happened next? The other end of the line was silent. I felt my temples pounding. Inform her that the company's labor contract with her is terminated. The employment contract can be automatically terminated when the employee voluntarily quits work for 3 days. But she neglected her work and was absent for a whole week without any impact. I didn't even know she had such privileges in the company. The labor contract ended in the morning. And in the afternoon, Jiang Suizhou called. He opened his mouth and accused her. "Zhu Yang, you're too much. Since when did you start bullying people like this? If you're not happy, you can approach me. Why make things difficult for her? Is it true that in your eyes, strangling her is as easy as strangling an ant? Zhu Yang, you've disappointed me so much. Are you done talking?" I coldly interrupted. "You're here yelling at me. Do you know that she's already quit her job a week ago?" Jiang Suizhou suppressed his anger. "I don't believe you don't know what happened at the Wen family. Zhu Yang, you're also a woman. Don't you have the least bit of sympathy? I nodded. Yeah, I finally understand why Yi Xiaonuo dared to do that. You gave her that confidence. Right, made her feel that in my company, she could come if she wanted to, and leave if she didn't want to. Sorry, not only does she not have such privilege, you also do not have that right. I have already decided to fire Deep Tu Noan. If you feel sorry for her, then take her under your wing and protect her. Even if you want to give her the whole company, I have no objection. But Jiang Suizhou, you cannot be my boss. The next day I returned home. That afternoon I took the lawyer to Jiang Suizhou's company. Before meeting Jiang Suizhou, I met Yi Xiaonuo. She was wearing formal office attire, her hair tied up high, and light makeup. She was assigned by Jiang Suizhou to work in the chairman's office. The corner of my eyes swept past her. Not stopping, she suddenly stood up. President Hua. President Hua, I want to talk to you. My steps did not stop. She rushed forward and grabbed my arm. Her face red, her eyes filled with indignation and grievance. Yes, you are the boss. You are the rich, but just because you have money, can you humiliate others? The surroundings were quiet. Everyone turned their eyes to examine us. My face was as calm as water. I avoided her hand, and asked in confusion, why are you so easily humiliated? You suspect that I have an improper relationship with Mr. Jiang, and fired me without reason. Even though I took the initiative to call you, you still ignored me. Isn't that humiliating me? Does it mean that just because you're rich, you have the right to disrespect others? Alright, stop talking. Jiang Suizhou hurriedly arrived. He stood in front of me, blocking my line of sight, and said softly, did you come to see me for something? Let's go inside and talk. At first glance, he seemed to be condescending to me, but I knew that he was protecting Yi Xiaonuo. But some people are idiots. Yi Xiaonuo was emotional, and shouted angrily, Miss Zhu, shouldn't you apologize to me? Yi Xiaonuo, go to work. Jiang Suizhou growled softly, causing the always dignified Yi Xiaonuo to turn red in the eyes. He wanted to pull me into the office. I stopped and pushed him away. You want to discuss right and wrong with me? Yi Xiaonuo, I remember that one time you argued with Wenzu just because Wenzu helped a friend of the opposite sex carry a bag. She cried and made a fuss as if the two of them were in bed together. Then let me ask, in the middle of the night, you and my husband are single, either sharing a room or relieving their boredom together. You still need him to cook brown sugar and ginger tea for you. So should the two of you be locked in a pig cage and set adrift on the river? I didn't. Yi Xiaonuo blushed. Brother Jiang and I are innocent. We have nothing. I clicked my tongue. So the same thing that someone else did was against the heavens and the earth. But what you did was innocent. Why do you have such double standards? Brother Jiang came to find me. Oh, I looked at Jiang Suizhou. Did you hear that? You're being mean. I didn't. Jiang Suizhou's face darkened. He tightened his grip on my wrist. Alright, let's go in. Slap. I slapped Jiang Suizhou's hand, shook it off, and looked at him coldly. Get out of the way. It's not time for me to talk to you yet. Yi Xiaonuo, if you feel that I fired you against the rules, then you should sue. If you feel that I have insulted your dignity, then you should get out of my husband's company immediately. Even now, you are still accepting favors from other people's husbands, but you still feel that other people's wives don't give you a smile. Is your reputation that big? Every day, he insults you in one way or another, and humiliates you in another. What about Jiang Suizhou? He hung up on you, ignored you, and didn't want to talk to you more than once. Why don't I see you holding a grudge against him? If you could transfer your patience and tolerance towards Jiang Suizhou to the Wen family, you and Wenzu would have achieved success long ago. Zhu Yang. Jiang Suizhou's voice wasn't heavy, but his gaze towards me was very heavy. He looked like he wanted to settle accounts with me, making me feel that bringing a lawyer here was the right decision. So I didn't give him a chance to speak, took out the divorce agreement and threw it in front of him. Here's my draft. You take a look first. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, tell my lawyer. Today we'll try to finalize the agreement. Tomorrow we'll file for court. But before that, I want to make sure that the answer you'll give in court is that you agree to the divorce. Jiang Suizhou stiffened. His gaze lingered on the table for a long time, then turned to my face. You want a divorce? Yes. Zhu Yang, how much of a fuss do you want to make? Do you have to have something really happen between me and Yi Xiaonuo for you to feel normal? I calmly sat across from him. It's strange. You know that there are things that have crossed the line, but you still do it. You test my limits step by step, and then pull down my bottom line step by step. I thought that being tolerant of you would make you respect me more. On the contrary, you feel that I need to be more tolerant of you. It turns out that no matter what kind of person they are, they all want to take advantage of the situation. Jiang Suizhou, if you are willing to take care of their business, then you can. If you are willing to be a third person, then you can. Don't argue with me about right and wrong, and don't reason with me about reason. I won't accept it. Before, I was in the dark, but clear outside. Now I am so rational that I am even afraid of myself. But Jiang Suizhou did not agree to the divorce. If you care about Yi Xiaonuo's existence, I will transfer her out of the president's office and reassign her work. But Zhu Yang, I really have nothing to do with her. All the concern you have for her is out of respect for Wen Zhu. There is no personal feeling. I nodded. Okay, I know. So can we get a divorce now? Jiang Suizhou's face darkened again. Do you really have to cause trouble for no reason? Jiang Suizhou, I have endured. I leaned forward, looking at him firmly. You go find her. I endure. You chat with her. I endure. You relieve your stress with her. I endure. I can even continue to endure. You won't actually have anything happen to her. But I stopped you once. On our wedding anniversary. After that, you didn't hesitate to deceive me, even waiting for me to fall asleep before running to her. Am I a cheap and despicable thing? Or because I endured too many times, you feel that I am good-natured and can let you bully me? I stood up. Jiang Suizhou, I have decided to end this marriage. That day, Jiang Suizhou and I did not reach a consensus on the divorce. When I wanted a divorce, he thought I was making trouble for no reason. In order to appease my anger, he transferred Yi Xiaonuo to the 12th floor. My best friend asked, so he still doesn't believe that you really want a divorce? No, he does. Otherwise, he wouldn't have transferred Yi Xiaonuo. But because it happened after I filed for divorce, it became meaningless. If he doesn't agree to the divorce, what are you going to do? He's going to get a divorce. One day, I met Wen Zhu. I didn't intend to greet him, but he called out to me, Zhu Yang, sorry. I turned to look at him. He was holding a glass of wine, leaning lazily on the chair. His mood was indescribably depressed. He said, I won't bother you two anymore. Yi Xiaonuo and I are breaking up. I raised my eyebrows. Wen Zhu smiled bitterly. This time it's true. My sister is right. If Yi Xiaonuo really wanted to be with me, she should take the initiative to contact my family and resolve the conflict. But she's always prejudiced. Whenever my family shows little emotion, she feels like she's been deeply humiliated. But her parents also find fault with me, and also scrutinize me. Didn't I always put on a smiling face to make up? Acting pitiful when needed? Why can't she? She's always calculating. If she pays a cent, I have to pay back 100 times. I can only go along unconditionally. Otherwise it would be me treating her badly. Is it just because my family is richer? I didn't reply, just silently nodded in my heart. Maybe Yi Xiaonuo really thought so. She was weak, so she was right. She saw herself as the victim, feeling that everyone wanted to hurt her. She attacked everyone, even Wen Zhu. Her whole body was full of thorns. Only to Jiang Suizhou did she reveal her soft belly. It was quite magical. I didn't express any opinion about Wen Zhu's complaints. But when I was about to leave, he spoke up again. Zhu Yang, actually you don't need to worry. Jiang Suizhou didn't treat her differently because he liked Yi Xiaonuo. This sentence piqued my interest. I sat down across from him. Oh, so why? You probably don't know. In high school he liked a girl, a poor student who was supported by the Jiang family to continue studying. Jiang Suizhou liked her very much, and confessed to her right after the college entrance exam. She agreed. They were together for 3 months. 2 months of summer vacation, 1 month of college. Then his mother found out. His mother told him, either you separate yourself, or I will help you cut it off. Jiang Suizhou never let go of that matter. He always said that if he had persisted and been stronger, he and that girl would have had a happy ending. He told me not to give up easily. He didn't want his tragedy to happen again. He said that when he saw Xiao, he would remember that girl. The girl was abandoned by him. He was too weak, so he had to let go. Then he went to study abroad. He and I met at that time. He lived next door to me. Got drunk and entered the wrong room. I smashed his head and called the police. At first, we didn't like each other, but because we were from the same hometown, living abroad, we unconsciously became closer. Sometimes he bought some extra fruit and left it in front of my door. When I cooked, I sometimes cooked an extra portion and called him over to eat. Then I really had a burglar break into my house. I hid in the closet, shaking as I called him. He told me not to be afraid, to wait for him. That time I almost died. The thief strangled me. My consciousness gradually blurred. Jiang Suizhou ran over. He restrained the thief, hugged me and ran to the hospital. He said he had never been so scared. We were together like that. I asked him if he had a first love. He said no. We are each other's first loves. Yes. I looked at Wenzhou silently. You're burning the bridge after crossing the river. If you insist on blaming Jiang Suizhou for your breakup with Xiao, then you're inviting a wolf into your house. Wenzhou's face darkened. What about you? Haven't you always indulged him? That's right. I'm not more decisive than anyone else. Nor am I more far-sighted than anyone else. I'm just an ordinary person who has accumulated disappointments about love and marriage. The secret conversation between Wenzhou and I seemed like I had won absolutely. But only I knew that what he said to me had stirred up a storm in my heart. When I returned to my residence, Jiang Suizhou was waiting for me outside the door. What are you doing here? To pick me up and take me home. Seeing his attitude, I chuckled. Jiang Suizhou, why do you care so much about Xiao? Jiang Suizhou pursed his lips into a straight line. He didn't want to answer, but my attitude of not giving up when I don't get an answer finally made him open his mouth. He said, I just feel that two people who love each other like this, just because of the so-called incompatibility of social status, breaking up is too much of a pity. I nodded, in Jiang Suizhou's expectant eyes. I said, before, I just wanted to happily get together and break up. But now, Jiang Suizhou, you disgust me. Jiang Suizhou was stunned. Perhaps he had never heard such a thing in his life. He gritted his teeth. His hands hanging by his side tightened. His face gradually darkened. Zhu Yang, do we have to be like this? I was silent for 2 seconds. That girl's name is Zhou Nuo, right? Jiang Suizhou's eyes were shocked. Speechless. A Xiao Nuo who went through a similar situation has made you lose control to this extent. I don't dare to imagine what it would be like if the real person appeared. If you're so infatuated, why would you come to tease me? How disgusting. I didn't mention the divorce with Jiang Suizhou anymore. Even if I talked him to the point where his defenses were broken, I wouldn't mention it again. I was waiting for this marriage to reach the point where divorce was unavoidable. The image of Jiang Suizhou carrying Xiao away was leaked by someone. The first people to make things difficult for Jiang Suizhou were his parents. They had 2 demands. First, apologize to the Wen family. Second, cut off all ties with Xiao. Jiang Suizhou wouldn't accept any of them. Therefore, someone who was about to reach the age of 30 and established, like him, was beaten by his father and sent to the hospital. Jiang Suizhou's mother called me, crying and asking me what to do. She asked me to advise Jiang Suizhou. He listens to you the most, but the person he doesn't want to see the most is you. When I tore all his dignity apart, saying he was wrong in front of everyone, even if his current choice was wrong, he would still walk alone to the end of the road. Perhaps it was his sad dignity. The second person who made things difficult for Jiang Suizhou was the Wen family. The contract that Jiang Suizhou had worked hard to negotiate for half a year was ruined by the Wen family. President Xiao Wen only said one sentence: do you think that you barged into my Wen family, interfered in the Wen family's affairs, and left with Wenzhou's girlfriend in front of everyone, and you don't have to pay any price? This forced Jiang Suizhou to return with his illness to preside over the big picture. I heard that the shareholders had many opinions. I heard that President Xiao Wen's decision put his company in danger. I heard that he hadn't left the company for 48 hours. Then Xiao Nuan contacted me. Her voice was filled with both forbearance and stubbornness. President Zhu, I'm leaving. I hope you can help Brother Jiang get through this difficult time. I don't want Brother Jiang to be criticized because of me. We are innocent, whether you believe it or not. You guys are the bad guys. You idiot. If she hadn't seen, I would have given her the middle finger. I hung up the phone, blocked her number, and deleted all her contacts. It was said that she had said similar words to President Xiao Wen and Wen Zhu. These words did not leave any trace in President Xiao Wen's mind, but they irritated Wen Zhu. So President Xiao Wen confiscated his phone, packed him up, and sent him abroad. Although Yi Xiao Nuan spoke very sincerely, as far as I knew, she was not doing well in the Jiang Corporation. She had run into Jiang Suizhou many times, but she could not get close to him. Jiang Suizhou treated her as if she did not exist, and even if she fell right in front of him, he would not look at her again. But why didn't he fire Yi Xiao Nuan? Because he didn't want to admit his mistake. Like a stubborn child, clearly knowing that tearing a book would result in being beaten, but still wanted to tear it up while crying. Yi Xiao Nuan was that torn book. The third person who made things difficult for Jiang Suizhou was my father. His request was very simple. Let the two of you divorce. You can still cooperate in the business in the future. Otherwise, you will turn against each other. My Zhu family cannot accommodate this person. At the negotiating table, Jiang Suizhou stood up and left. No matter how his father scolded him, he did not return. After that, no one could contact him. His mother called me again, pleading and complaining. Ah Yang, no matter how many years you two have been together, do you have to go to this point? Suizhou likes you, I can see it. Even though he was forced to this extent, he still refused to divorce. Do you want to throw stones at him? Ah Yang, consider it as me begging you. Call Suizhou. He will definitely answer your call. Actually, there was no need. Jiang Suizhou was outside my house. It had been 3 hours since I opened the window and saw him. He was leaning against the car, smoking one cigarette after another. He didn't come near, nor did he hide his presence. He just stood there. I went upstairs, and when I pulled the curtains, he looked up and met my eyes. When I was woken up by the alarm clock, he was no longer outside the door. At 10 a.m., the lawyer contacted me. Jiang Suizhou agreed to divorce. It had been 27 days since I filed for divorce. The divorce case between Jiang Suizhou and I will be heard next Wednesday. I thought Jiang Suizhou wouldn't come and sent his lawyer. I didn't expect him to come. He was wearing a suit, looking a little gloomy. He had lost a lot of weight. After all, he had been seriously ill. Suddenly, I remembered what my best friend had said. She said that Jiang Suizhou seemed to have no vitality now. The trial proceeded quickly. The lawyers from both sides presented their opinions. The court reconciled, and finally asked us if we wanted a divorce. I answered without hesitation. Jiang Suizhou was silent for a long time. It wasn't until the judge asked a second time. He raised his eyes and hoarsely replied, I agree to the divorce. My clenched fists loosened, and I let out a long breath. At this point, the marriage between Jiang Suizhou and I ended. We didn't say a word that day. I waited for the assistant driver to pick me up, and he walked past me without a glance. I felt pretty good. I also thought that my relationship with Jiang Suizhou would just end like that. Until his car was parked outside my house for a whole week. At first, I didn't mind, but he didn't hold back, and I felt even more annoyed. So today, when I came home late and saw his car, I knocked on the car window. There was no movement in the car. I stared at the car window for a long time, and finally the car door opened. Jiang Suizhou, what do you want? He lowered his head and didn't answer. I felt like a fire was burning in my heart. Jiang Suizhou, do you really know what you're doing? I turned around and left. He hurriedly grabbed my wrist. Sorry, the apology was hasty. He said, I didn't want to bother you. I just couldn't sleep. Then go see a doctor and take some medicine. You keep saying you won't bother me, but you're really bothering me. You feel like you can't sleep because of me, and that you can only sleep outside my house. Should I be so moved that I cry bitterly? You can't sleep. You're uncomfortable. You need to tell me. You need to affect my normal life? Jiang Suizhou, you're still so childish and funny. After that day, I didn't see Jiang Suizhou again, but his stories still often reached my ears. For example, he became a workaholic. For example, he drank until he had a stomach hemorrhage. For example, someone else just teased me a few times, and he beat that person to the point of being hospitalized. And also the matter related to Yi Xiaonuo. In the end, she quit her job at Jiang Suizhou's company. I heard that before she quit, she slapped Jiang Suizhou, saying that if it weren't for Jiang Suizhou, she and Wenzu wouldn't have ended up like this. As for me, my best friend didn't believe that I would let things go so easily. After all, it was 7 years. No matter how much a person can be lifted up and put down, they will still suffer for a long time. It really is like that. I often drank alone at night, and also suffered from insomnia. Sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night with a pounding heart, unable to fall asleep again. But I didn't let anyone know. I was a very proud person. Even if I was about to burst into tears the next second, I would try to hold it in and close the curtains. But fortunately, this situation only lasted for 3 months. After that, I began to enjoy a free and easy life alone. Occasionally, I would accidentally meet Jiang Suizhou. I would nod and smile in greeting, without any extra emotions. As for him, whether he hurriedly lowered his head or had red eyes, whether he was filled with despair or choked up without saying a word, it had nothing to do with me. The story between Jiang Suizhou and I had turned a page. My life continued to move forward.